This is the Final Word Story Time 243 with Jeff Lemon and Adam Collins. The show's brought to you by Maurice Blackburn, the #1 plaintiff law firm in Australia, and it is the 243rd time. Not that we knew originally. Story time's a bit like test matches in that the people playing the first ones didn't know they were playing a test match. We didn't know we were recording story time the first, 20 times, maybe 10 times that we recorded story time. Eventually, that's what it became. And we had the statisticians retrospectively allocate status. But we are now at 243. 243 is the number of runs that Virat Kohli made in that in the vomit test in Delhi when nobody could breathe and the Sri Lankans were bowling in N95 respirators. Before that was all the rage, before the rest of the world was in the N95s, the Sri Lankans were doing it, just trying to get through a day of cricket in Delhi, which is by far the most polluted place that I've ever attended a cricket match as well. Adam, hello, welcome.
Hello. Don't bring back bad memories of that week in Delhi, Jeff, the one that we did a couple of years ago when I've seldom been sicker thanks to the pollution. That didn't just get into my respiratory system, but I felt like it got into my bones, got into my heart, got into my soul. When Bharat had to race into the room when he thought I was dying. They weren't great times.
No.
Those pills Bharat sourced for me, remember that? He goes, oh, you're fucked, basically. You're in a real bad way. I know a guy who can give you the the special tablets, which didn't save the day or anything, but it got me through a couple of sessions of commentary.
Well, are they basically amphetamines? Is that
I suspect they were a version of illicit drugs woven in through some multi-layered antibiotics or something like that.
Sure, real Breaking Bad moment. There's some. I'm pretty sure I've got some kicking around from Bali at some point that are like these clear gel caps full of random multicolored. They look like hundreds and thousands have been jammed in there, but I can tell you that they are not hundreds and thousands. They're rather more effective than that. But God knows what it does. But it gets you to the start line at least.
Good point about that. The naming convention of Storytime being comparable, analogous to Test cricket. So, like, who's the James Lillywhite in this situation? Who brought this to become its first real thing? Because of course we had Nerd Pledge numbers, which I doubt they were even called that, in 2019 into 2020. What was the bit? What was the story? What was the tour? What was the match that made us have to reconsider what big game cricket was? What big cricket, was at the time, and then what later got described as big cricket between nations, and thus Test cricket when defined in 1890 or whatever it was, and retrospectively going back 13 years. What was the story where we went, it is unsustainable for us to do this in our weekly show?
Yes.
What was the straw that broke the camel's back?
It's the point where we reduxed a few early interviews that we'd done because we'd moved hosts, we'd moved labels, we'd moved feeds, and we were like, well, there are people listening who won't have heard these. And I think it's Jason Gillespie from memory, which was the first long interview we did with Gillespie. So we republished that and we went, since we're republishing it, why don't we spend 20 minutes at the top doing some of the numbers that we've had stacking up that we don't have time to do on the weekly show. So we did that. And then subsequently, the first few story times are all paired with early interviews. There you go.
That's right, because it was the pandemic, and we were calling them like remastered interviews, or
reboots, or
reboots, or it's some joke. Yeah,
Redux,
the Vic Marks, the
Alien Resurrection.
Yeah, it was that whole series of them: Gillespie, Vic Marks. It was an Elise Perry in there early on, wasn't there? A whole bunch of them from 17,
Vic Marks, 18. The Quickening.
Yeah. Yeah. 243, by the way. This is one of those episodes of Storytime where I'm going to refer to a number of things that I spoke about last week. Well, last week I told you about Sheehan, Paul Shagger Sheehan, or our friend Sheehan Shagger Arnott, and his fifer and hat trick in a game that I played with him during the week, and how he was named after Paul Sheehan. Paul Sheehan, Test cap number 243 for Australia.
Oh.
It was meant to be. It was meant to be. So that's where we start our show today. Oh, one more thing that we touched on last week but didn't quite finish, Jeff. This is Daniel Paproth. Pappy, you're the one for me, Pappy, former White Line Wireless friend of ours, who went through and worked out every Australian Prime Minister and who the leading Australian man as far as wickets and runs were in the time that they were Prime Minister. So, for instance, let's go to the very top. Sir Edmund Barton, in his 2.5 years as Prime Minister between, Federation, the 1st of January 1901 and the 24th of September 1903. Hugh Trumbull, most wickets with 54, and Clem Hill, most runs with 705. And so it runs all the way through the years. It's a terrific chart. Absolutely loved going through this. Some of the quirkier ones, Jeff, I reckon I could give you almost like 20 darts at the dartboard for John Gorton. John Gorton was Prime Minister between
late 70s.
January 1968 and the 10th of March 1971, when Billy McMahon became the PM briefly before Whitlam won the election in 1972. It was a bowler who took 86 wickets between the January of 68 and the March of 71. And obviously it's a prominent bowler to take 86 wickets in that span of time, but it requires a lot of assumed knowledge here.
Okay, so the batter would be Bob Simpson, would it, or Ian Redpath?
No, actually Doug Walters, 2,213 runs in that,
sure.
which kind of works. That's a shitload of runs, actually, isn't it? In that window of time. But yeah, the leading wicket taker. The clue I could give you, I'm not very good at this, but the front cover of I can't really do it. The front cover of Mystery Spinner, that brilliant photograph of Jack Iverson holding the ball out, pushing it out. Well, the man who copied Jack Iverson's bowling action, Johnny Gleeson, who took all the wickets in 68 and had a big home summer, I think, in 69, 70. He took 86 wickets when John Gorton was Prime Minister. Whitlam's best bowler. Again, you'd be thinking Lilly, wouldn't you?
Lilly.
Right?
Yep.
1972. Famously, the 5th of December, 1972, and even more famously, the 11th of November, 1975, infamously. Kerr. It wasn't Lilly. It wasn't Thompson. It was the bloke that bowled first change. Maxie Tangles Walker, 91 test wickets when Whitlam was Prime Minister. And Chappelli led the runs, sure enough. For those who want to go more modern, Peter Siddle is paired up nicely with Julia Gillard. And a good one here, Kevin Rudd Mark II, so PM from late June 2013 until middle of September 2013. Jeff, who do you think that was?
June 2013. Did they play a test match?
Yeah, you were there.
June and September?
Yeah. They played 5 of them, and you were there. Well, at least
June. Yeah, so that
June,
Ashes
June 13.
In England. So
Johnson's
not playing.
I've got a feeling Buff became coach around the day that around the same time. Anyway, 2013 Ashes.
So 2013 Ashes. Johnson's not playing. Stark plays 3 out of 5, so it won't be him. Siddle's floating around at the time. Harris?
Sexy Ryan Harris.
24
wickets in the Ashes series.
He played all 5, didn't he?
I don't think he did, I reckon Harris missed the first, didn't he? He didn't play.
Or did he play 4 out of 5?
Didn't play at Trent Bridge. Paddo played and then Paddo got injured, I think.
Yeah.
Rings a bell. And then in more
But they chopped and changed a lot because Stark played 3 non-consecutively. He played 1, 3 and 5.
Right.
Harris is definitely there at Durham. He's definitely there at Manchester because he takes 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 3 on the last day at Manchester before it rains. England are 3 for bugger all when the rain comes in and saves them. So yeah, makes sense. That was his and then he goes into the 13-14 series.
And Lyon was the leader for Turnbull and so far with Albanese, with Smith paired up quite neatly. In the middle of that, Morrison's 4 years as Prime Minister, Pat Cummins, which he probably doesn't like too much, and Marnus Labuschagne. By the way, if you're just Googling
Marnus probably has a bit more in common with Morrison.
In terms
of spiritual proclivity.
Spiritual stuff, perhaps, but I don't know about the other stuff. But there's a great Jonathan Liu's moved jobs recently. He's a political writer now, but he still gets let loose on the sport in a weekly column. And we were talking shit yesterday, as you do, in a WhatsApp group, and he basically used it to motivate him to write a column about Marnus, and it's Lou at his best. I recommend reading Jonathan. He's interviewed Marnus before about religion, and I feel like he's the Marnus whisperer to a certain extent, along with Barat, of course, but so if you want to jump on The Guardian and read what Jonathan Liu has to say about Marnus Labuschagne, you will enjoy that. And his self-criticism about being a columnist too, there's quite good too. Anyway, that chart, I don't know where I'll publish it. Maybe on Patreon, Jeff?
Sure.
Probably the easiest place.
Why not?
Join our Patreon, patreon.com/final word. On Discord, that's where it'll be. We will publish Dan Patroth's list of Prime Ministers of Australia, runs and wickets and all the other quirks that you might find along the way. Jeff.
Let's do the thing that we came here to do. Let's play a game of Nerd Play. Nerd Pledge, the game we play with the nice people on the internet who fund this program through Patreon, as Adam just mentioned. Here's what they do. They sign up for a subscription. It's voluntary, but it gets you some nice things along the way. And one thing that you can do is send in a number to the show. So when you sign up, you choose your amount of currency. That might be $5.47, like Nick Ibis has sent in. And when you sign up with that amount, we note down what the number is, and then we try to work out what 547 means. The decimal point could go anywhere. It could be interpreted in many different ways. It might be 547,000. It might be 0.547. Who knows? It might be 5 for 47. It might be a range of different things. And some people send us a clue and some people do not. And Nick Ibis, who has been on the show a few times before and who sent us the story about the Adelaide roller coaster,
sure
which
did.
is
That's
one
what I was
of
gonna
our
say.
favourites.
Yeah.
Has sent a clue with this one, which I enjoyed and which, Adam, I invite you to enjoy now.
I'm going to say this here and now, Jeff. Roller coaster makes the second book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Roller coaster gets a run in our next Storytime book. Didn't get a go this time. It
The
got
Matt roller coaster.
It hit the cutting room floor.
Yes.
Just not for reasons.
It was
that are
on
not
the
being
long
best.
list.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was not that it wasn't in the best 22 yards. It was. I guess it was a light and shade. Some stories needed to be fun. Some stories needed to be not fun. Okay, well, not fun, but more serious in their way. So Nick says here the answer is a summation of Hussey's cap numbers, but the story I want is this: every year on the 6th of January, Peggy's birthday, Insurrection Day. 1 year after, Peggy will get a Hang Mike Pence t-shirt at some point. I get a Facebook memory of a post from the 6th of January 2013, which simply says that last run says a lot about Mike Hussey. I suspect I was on the lemonades and feeling philosophical, but I have no fucking clue what the context is. Please work it out for me. I am not a crackpot. Didn't Huss get run out his last test?
Maybe in the first innings.
I was there and I was on the cordials as well. I had a pretty hefty tilt on the cordial. I fell asleep. I was out with Reese during that test match with Reese Muldoon one night, and I woke up on a lawn right near the Harbour Bridge at about 3 a.m. It was one of those ones where I just had a little nap and it extended for a couple of hours. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? Anyway, that's a hazard of spending a few days at the cricket with Reese. Hope you're doing well. Love you dearly. See you soon. Right. So Jeff, Nick Ibis.
And anyone who was at our live shows in Melbourne or Sydney would understand how that happened. Yes, Michael Hussey was run out in the first innings. Michael Clark burned him. And our favourite, the pool party captain himself, Big Frank, Dimith Karunaratne, ran him out with a direct hit for 25 in the first innings. But that is neither here nor there when it comes to this story. So 547 is 393, which is Hussey's test cap, plus 150, which is his one-day cap, plus 4, which is his T20 international cap. Nice to be in the original 11 there, the James Lillywhite T20 side, if you will. In 2013, Nick, can I work out what this means? I believe I can. Australia start a test match on the 3rd of January. You're talking about the 6th of January. That's in Sydney. It's the end of a 3-test series against Sri Lanka. There's the Hobart match. Hussey makes a ton in the first innings. This is not the famous Kumar Sangakkara Hobart match where he makes 192 and gets sawn off by Rudy off the helmet. Didn't hit it.
Well, that was still a pretty good one. Mitchell Starc takes his maiden test fifer very late on day 5. That was the test where Matt Wade bowls and Phil Hughes is keeping, and I don't remember much more than that. But it was a much better start to the series. Well, the tests that follow aren't especially competitive, but the first one's good.
There is the chase is 393. Sangakkara makes 63 this time. It's not that close, but they're kind of in it for a while.
They're running out of time. The more the issue is Australia running out of time.
Yeah,
for the draw. Yeah,
Melbourne is the Charnel House game where Mitch Johnson hurts everybody. It's sort of like step 1 on his comeback trail towards the 13-14 Ashes is playing those couple of tests in Melbourne and Sydney. So he sends Sangakkara and the keeper Joe Ordner, not the other Joe Ordner, to hospital with broken hands or arms or thereabouts. In the end, Australia only need to take 7 wickets in the 4th innings because there were 3 injured Sri Lankan players. The other one wasn't an impact injury. I think it was one of the bowlers broke down with a muscle problem or something like that.
Yeah, it was Sydney. Good because it was nice because Sangakkara getting his 10,000th run on day 1, which we got to celebrate. It was like that quirk I think I've seen 6 guys bring up their 10,000th test run, and the Sangakkara one is when I'm there on a stag do for a colleague of mine, and I very much was not working, and we very much got him on the big screen. I think he was proposed to on screen in a wedding, very stag do vibes. Within like half an hour of Sangakkara bringing up his 10,000th run.
I'm going to say, if you're wearing a wedding dress, you don't need to be proposed to. Like somebody's messed up the timing there.
Yeah, I think I queued it up from memory. I queued up the big screen. I spoke to someone who spoke to someone and made sure we got him on camera.
Yeah.
It's a while ago now, but it was nice that did not. He got the 10,000 early enough that it wasn't ruined by them being in disarray by that point.
If anybody is proposing to you at a wedding, it could only be in a situation where they're trying to avoid you marrying someone else, right? The movie thing. If anybody objects to this union, blah blah blah, speak now or forever hold your peace. Have you ever been at a wedding where anyone says that?
Going to say the same thing. Have you been to a wedding where I've been to a wedding where? Well, how will I frame this? I've been to a wedding where a number of people were worried about that bit because they very much knew reasons why these people should not be married.
We've all been to those weddings.
I mean,
we've all been to
scandalously so. Like, I was at this wedding with multiple people, and we talked about it before. We're like, how do we deal with this ethically? And we didn't, and it resolved itself in the fullness of time. So it was all good in the end. But you know what I mean. But have you been at a wedding where someone has piped up at that juncture?
No, but I've been at weddings where I probably probably should have. It wouldn't have helped. It wouldn't have. But let's say I've been at weddings for marriages that haven't made it one full lap around the sun, and that likelihood was evident at the wedding itself. I'll leave it there.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, try to write a speech for one of those weddings. That is all I'll say. Now, where are we? Yes. So Sydney, they get to Sydney, and it's not a close game, but it gets closer than it should be, basically. So this is a real time travel Australian Test team. I enjoy just looking through this 11. David Warner and Ed Cowan opening the original odd couple. Some of the observations that each of those players made about the other while they were forced to work together were interesting, and I won't go any further than that. Phil Hughes batting at 3, which was fun. Clark and Hussey. Then Matt Wade is at 6 in this game because they go Johnson, Siddle, Stark, Bird with Lyon, because they don't want to leave Johnson out, because they're like, no, this is getting Mitch Johnson back in the rhythm of things. We've got to make sure that he plays.
This is the game from the book. Yeah, I'm like, what is this? That's right. So this is the game where Maxie's told he's playing and making his Test debut at home, because he was brought into the squad for Melbourne, that you referred to before, where Christmas morning, where he'd received a call from Mickey Arthur saying, get to the MCG now. He was still living with his parents out in South Belgrave, jumped in the car, drove to the G, gave his phone over. Watto does the fitness test, and Watto passes the fitness test and ends up blowing up his hamstring on the first day. So he should have debuted there. Watto's out of this Test match. So the working assumption, given Maxwell was added to the squad, is that he would be the all-rounder in Sydney, and he flies up like 30 people from South Belgrave Cricket Club rock up. His parents are there. Everyone's expecting that he will play, and it turns out to be the only time they've played 4 specialist seamers at the SCG since Federation. Never have before, never have since, and Maxie didn't get that home debut which he craved for so long and sadly never got.
Yeah, it's one of a number of unlikely rough deals that he ended up getting, because they were so keen to keep Johnson in the team but not leave out any of the others who had been in there. And there was somebody missed Melbourne and came back for Sydney, there and thereabouts. Anyway, the point is this: Australia are batting second. They make 400 and something, and so they're well on top in the match. Sri Lanka have done okay either side of that. They make 294 in the first innings, 278 in the third. So they've set Australia 141 to win. It's not enough. It won't be enough, but it's something to bowl at. And then Warner gets a golden duck, and then Cowan does his job, sort of digs in that way that he does. Couple of partnerships with Hughes and then with Clark, but Sri Lanka start chipping away. Herath is there, and anytime Rangana Herath is there, there's a possibility of something happening. He gets Hughes LBW on review for 34. Clark catch at short leg for 29 off Dilshan, so they're 3 for 104. They're not that far off. But when Clark gets out, everyone is stoked. Everyone's pumped, and it's not because they hate Michael Clark. It's because Mike Hussey is coming out to bat, and it's because this is his last Test innings.
That's right. Yeah,
he's announced he'll retire at the end of the series, and with only 141 to chase, one of people's main concerns was, will we get to see Hussey bat in towards the end of the game? And they do, they will. And there's some great there's somebody's footage from the stands of the ovation, huge standing ovation when Hussey comes in at the SCG. It's super loud. It's not that full, but everybody there is on their feet and giving it the big ones. And it was quite moving going back and watching that and remembering the huge regard in which Mike Hussey was held as somebody who just adapted so well and made the best of things in Australian cricket. So he walks out to the middle, he drives a couple through the covers and then a single, and he's away. The very next over, Cowan's LBW to Herath for 36. So they're 4 down now. And then Hussey does the sort of thing that Hussey does, smacks a pull shot for 4, and then he just starts collecting one-day style. Like, he was so good in that lower middle order in one-day cricket, just finding the ones, turning them into 2s. And he's doing this just to make sure he chips down the total and that there won't be any room for alarms, I suppose. Reverse sweep for 4 off Herath at one stage, which is bold, but he's in his last innings, so he wants to have a bit of fun. And then Matthew Wade has a huge slog at Herath, misses, gets bowled. So, 5 down now, 9 runs to win, but Mitch Johnson's out there. So there's the slightest possibility of Australia screwing this up. If another 1 or 2 go quickly, well, it might just start to get a bit nervous. So Hussey just goes safety first, faces out the next over from Dilshan, steals a run off the last ball. First ball of the next over, hits one away, judges he can get back for 2, makes sure he gets back for the double, that full one-day mode. And then he starts managing the strike. So he takes a single late in the over, makes sure that he'll be on strike for the next over. And then they go to tea with like 5 runs to win because, cricket. So, of course they do. So he's sitting there for the whole tea break going 5 runs to win. How am I going to leave Test cricket? I'll hit the winning runs, hit it with a 6, win the game with a 6. That'd be nice. Or maybe pick up a couple more runs and then have a nice boundary. You remember like Amazing Adelaide, the last one that he smacks through covers for 4 and it gets replayed all the time. All of the possibilities. He's facing Dilshan after the break, guides him away for a couple of runs, gets back on strike. And as he did before the break, 4th ball of the over, he takes a single, lets Mitch Johnson block a couple. Next over, 2 runs to win, still facing Herath, still a bit of a danger, takes a single off the 3rd ball. And Johnson's job again is to block out the over as he's been doing for the last few overs in a row. But 5th ball of the over, Johnson pushes at a ball, knocks it away into the offside, and he's not going anywhere. He looks up like he's not moving, and he sees Hussey's already about a third of the way down the pitch. And not only is he taking the run, he was about a metre out of his ground as the ball's getting delivered, ready to go, like he's ready to pinch the single. So, instead of letting Johnson block out the over and then Hussey having an over against Dilshan to wait for a ball to play a nice big shot and hit the winning runs and be on the highlights reel for that last bit of the game, he goes, no, we need a single. We're going to win the game at the first possibility and make sure that nothing goes wrong. And that's what he does. And I think that's what stirred Nick's soul that day, is seeing a player who even at the very last, even with that ovation that would tell you that you can do whatever you want out there, you are loved by the cricket watching public, and you can have the moment that you deserve to have. His humility said, no, you play the game as it should be played. You do the job that you're there to do, which is to score the runs and win it. And the winning run didn't matter to him, and perhaps it shouldn't, but it was something that tells you something about the way that Mike Hussey approached the game. And that innings should be on Rob Belinda's YouTube channel, RIP. What are you doing, Cricket Australia? Sort it out. Go and get Rob Belinda's archive and reanimate it and make it available for everybody, because I should have been able to go and watch every ball. There should have been a clip that said Mike Hussey's last innings in Test cricket, where I could have watched all of it, but it does not exist. And that's my take.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is kind of the way the game should be played in situations like that, at home or far away. I would say that humility and Hussey, like, he finished his Test career on, would I be right in saying he made 19 Test hundreds or something like that? So like there would have been the incentive to have kept going. Statistically, there was an Ashes series around the corner, an Ashes home summer.
2 of them, yeah.
Coming up as well.
There were 10 Ashes tests coming up.
Yeah, there were sort of selfish reasons why he could have hung on, and there's no way in the world they were going to drop Mike Hussey, given the way he'd played in the couple of years leading up to that, and indeed in that series, as you mentioned before. So, but, thought that it was the right time and made that call, and good on him for it. And you're right, Sydney is the ground for farewells. It has been for a long time, because of where the Sydney Test sits in the schedule. But I was there that day, and I remember that standing ovation and how special it all was. And we've seen a number of them as recently as a couple of years ago when David Warner finished up another instance of where Australia were chasing a small total, and Warner was out there at the end, wasn't he? Or did he get out for 50 or whatever it was? It was still part of that final day of the Test summer, which is always a thing. So yeah, I like those traditions of having certain Test matches performing certain roles. I always was drawn to Brisbane leading a series for similar reasons, and Sydney ending it where it's possible. It hits the right notes, and it certainly did when Mike Hussey gave it away. How many Test matches did he play in the end? Again, it would have been near enough, 70 something. It was
79.
79, yeah. And there were other statistical milestones. Yeah, 1900s, and he was not far away from a couple of other measures that would have put him into different parts of the pecking order for all-time runs made for Australia and stuff like that. But it just didn't matter to him. And his legacy is assured. There's no doubt about.
Well, he's not far off. He was 700 runs off Bradman.
Yeah, so. Yeah. It's just it. And look, that is what it is. But it's more that he could have definitely played 10 more Test matches without thinking about it. There's no way he would have been dropped. Not when Australian cricket was in the situation that it was in that moment in time. And there would have been those Test matches in India, which would have presented their own challenge and all the rest of it. Anyway, that's the story of Mike Hussey. Thank you, Nick Ibis, for being such a loyal supporter of ours and being part of our Patreon. And we encourage anyone listening to this show to get on board with us through this enormous southern summer. Before getting there, someone who is on board, or an organisation who is very much on board with us, is the mighty Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm. We've got the stories of their legal team and the work they do. A lot of the time in superannuation insurance. A client of Craig's, we mentioned Craig the other day, another one here as well, recently assisted somebody who contracted a serious lung disease, which meant she had to rely on heavy medication, oxygen treatment, and eventually a lung transplant, and was unable to continue working as a senior manager. So, clearly that's a crippling set of circumstances. Unfortunately, though, when she tried to claim insurance, the insurer pushed back. They alleged that because she'd attended a GP about her cough before taking out a policy, her condition was therefore pre-existing and she wouldn't be covered. Yes, what can you say? So they took on the insurer, Maurice Blackburn, with the client and resolved the dispute for over $650,000. That compensation enabled her to seek the medical treatment she needed and alleviated the financial burden of being unable to work for the foreseeable future. So superannuation insurance, where Maurice Blackburn are on your side, in your corner, resolving disputes like that, which must be utterly traumatic. Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm, some of the best lawyers in the country, an association that we are very, very proud to be continuing with on the final word all the way through season 19, which we are at the start of now, Jeff.
Yes, and we are at the point where we are going to have a break. We'll be back in a second. It's the final word. It is story time, number 243. And we talked a bit about people traveling the world and why you might want a VPN to go from one country to another. There are other reasons why you might want a VPN, and those reasons are about security. They're about safety. They're about the fact that people are out there with their sticky little fingers trying to get into your information, trying to monitor your data. And some of those people might be working for hostile governments, and some of them might be working for Russian server farms, and some of them might be working for God knows what. There are scams. There are hackers attacking public Wi-Fi networks, particularly if you're using ones in airports and hotels and things like that. Then there are weaknesses in that security. If you've got a VPN, something that NordVPN does is they have top level encryption, and so that can protect your online data, because so when you use a VPN, it's like a data tunnel, basically, that the data that's going from your device to connect to the internet is going through a set of shielding information that protects it from being accessed by third parties and protects it from being detected or recognized and having its source recognized. Thus, makes it more difficult for other parties to trace it back to you. I think that is broadly going to make sense. If somebody who knows about computers will get mad at my analogy, but it is a rough sketch of an analogy. So you got top level encryption with NordVPN. They'll encrypt any data that's traveling through their network to connect to other networks, and you can use it across 10 devices with one account. So you can make sure that everyone in your stable is covered by one account that costs a few bucks a month.
Give me encryption, don't give me crypto.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. There's a slogan for you. I think of it as like the Sliders tunnel. If you're familiar with the mid to late 90s TV show Sliders with Quinn Mallory and Wade Wells and Rembrandt Brown and Maximilian Arturo, you'll be familiar with what happened when they went through that tunnel, and nothing was breaking that. That's how I see the NordVPN encryption tunnel to protect your information. With that image in mind, visit nordvpn.com/TFW. Get your discount, which is so heavily discounted because you're friends with us. Bring it to Australia with you for the Ashes or anywhere else you will travel in the short term. I'm off to Brazil later this month, Jeff, for the first time, doing a trip there with Cricket Brazil when MCC are visiting, and cannot wait to get over there for that. I will have my VPN with me. I don't know what I'll be, so I can watch Strictly and I can exchange messages with Norcross about Strictly and other people.
Sure.
Norcross
VPN, if you will.
Norcross VPN, indeed. My turn, isn't it? Yes, it is.
It is. It's a pledge from Flem. I suspect this may be a Julio pledge rather than a nerd pledge, but whatever, Flem. You sent us the dosh, so we're going to do it anyway. The number is $30 in USD, and that's it. There's no clue attached. It probably is a Julio, but you've got 30. You've got 3000. Have at it.
It could be our mate Flem. If it is you, Flem, Damien Fleming, that's lovely for you to be joining us on the podcast. If it is a guest before, and probably not. It's probably someone else called Flem.
I imagine there's more than one.
Yeah, 30 is an investment level that you can pick by default on our Patreon. So, but I thought I would use this, in light of that, I would use the number 3,000 vaguely, because I suspect that it's not
Disco
literally
3,000.
Disco 3,000, that's right. Let's all meet up in the year 3000. Yes, what TV show ended up in the year 3000? Was it The Girl from Tomorrow? Tomorrow's End. Did you watch that when you were a kid? Girl from Tomorrow, Tomorrow's End?
I think so.
Man, what a show. I was obsessed with time travel as a kid, which won't surprise you. I still am. We still should make that Sliders show. That recap, episode by episode recap. It'll be 30 years this year since it first was on telly, right? I think we first started talking about doing it on the 20th anniversary of Sliders starting on television. We've been around a while.
Where is Jerry O'Connell? I think with every year that goes by, the chances of getting Jerry O'Connell involved get higher.
Yeah.
You know, like the distance between Jerry O'Connell and Jerry Maguire increases. And as that distance increases, the chances of him, returning to our level and being willing to be involved improve.
I sent him a DM. Got to be in it to win it. Flem. Well, first of all, what a
pretty sure Maximilian Arturo is not with us any longer. Right?
I'd be surprised. Yeah, I'd be surprised. We'll find out. RIP to a good one if he isn't with us anymore, and hope you're going well if you're still going strong. What a great series of caps, by the way. Cap 30 in Test cricket. Vinu Mankad, Sammy Jones,
funny,
instrumental to the Ashes starting, and Billy Bates.
Two controversial dismissals.
Yeah, and Billy Bates, who of course
always that Sammy Woods. Sorry, I always get those two mixed up.
Yeah, met a sad demise. Billy Bates with when he was hit, wasn't he? He was hit when he was in the nets in the eye, and that led towards him taking his own life. I think was the ultimate outcome there. But still, three people we've told the story of on the show before. Ultimate dinner party. We'll see. The number 3,000. And just for some reason, I thought I was just curious how often it's been made in a first-class season, and this got me off. I was off and running after this. So 29 times 3,000 runs have been made in the season.
29?
Yeah, which was a lot more than I thought. I thought like maybe 10. Because there's the famous season, which is where we're about to go, where we're about to talk about the famous 1947 season with Dennis Compton and his 3816. But yeah, I thought, well, let's do that. We've referred to 3816 in dispatches before. We've done some Compton stuff. In fact, we've done more on Compton's brother than we have on Dennis in a storytime construct. So let's work out how he constructed it. Dennis Compton was born in 1918, and there's this enduring greatness about him and what he contributed to English cricket either side of the Second World War. Loved by Bradman, admired by everybody. He was named as Middlesex's greatest ever cricketer. And hard to think of a player who's more linked to that post-war English Test recovery than Compton. And like, he wasn't posh either. I think there's a perception because he was a bit of a party boy and, the Brill Cream boy and all of that he might have been a certain type. He wasn't. His dad was a painter and decorator. And when the business went tits up, he became a lorry driver. They were from, northwest London, working class area. It's not as it might seem if you just look at the superficial stuff about Compton as the stylist and that kind of thing. He was prodigious as a young man. He played for, he played for the elementary schools 11 at Lords at age 14, as you do. It's very hard to get onto the main ground at Lords these days. A bit easier, I'm tipping. Back when he was a 14-year-old in what would have been, I suppose, 1932. And Plum Warner saw him, again, as you do, play this innings for the elementary schools 11 and got him on the ground staff at Lords in 1933 at age 15. So, and he never really left. Like his life is so linked to that ground. He reaches the Test team by age 19 in 1937, which was inevitable. He'd already started so well. That was against New Zealand. He made 3 first-class tons, looked ready straight away. And he's still the 3rd youngest English Test debutant on the men's side of things. Makes a century in the 1938 Ashes against Bradman's team. He was 20 years and 19 days at Trent Bridge when he achieved that, which remains the record for the youngest English man to make a Test century. In that same series, of course, at Lords, where he did so much of his great work, he made a match-saving 76 not out, which was talked about as just as important in the context of that series on a wet pitch where it was really challenging. So he was made of some proper stuff as well. It wasn't just the shot making; it was the presence. And it continued in 1939 before the war, nearly 2,500 runs at 56 with 8 centuries and a Test century this time at Lords, his first of several, against the West Indies where he made 120. And of course, that's when the music stops in 1939 for so many cricketers. But in Compton's case, he's 21, his career's paused, he joins the army. And towards the end of the war, he spends quite a bit of time in India. And it's quite remarkable that he plays a couple of first-class seasons in the Ranji Trophy, or at least not full seasons, but he plays games for Holkar. We were only talking about Holkar last week in relation
we've talked about this little bit of Compton's career before at some point. That the incongruity. I think it was one that I just found by accident when looking at some Ranji scorecards, and I was like, hang on a minute, what's this bloke doing here?
Well, he played in 44-45 and 45-46, so clearly he stayed on for a little while after the war as they were demobbing. 5 tons in 8 games in that first season. He also played against the Australian Services 11 against Keith Miller, and then there's that bond for life, right? There's the Compton Miller medal, which Marnus Labuschagne's going to win. And then you heard it here, first, second, third.
Why wasn't Bradman playing Ranji Trophy? This is what I want to know. Didn't want it enough. Old Mr. Never Go to India, or, could have proved himself on those turning decks, and then you would have at least shut down that line of argument from the absolute gibberers who go, Sachin was better despite averaging half as much because Don never played in India. So how do we know he was any good? He mightn't have made any. He might not have been able to handle the turning ball. I suspect he would have probably gone okay.
Would have also given Bradman some overseas war service, which is another thing that must have been strange for players that didn't. Or anyone who didn't, I don't know. It's hard to put yourself in those shoes. Norcross and I did once, still about 4 a.m, about what we would have done.
if you'd been of age.
Yeah. That doesn't really bear to mention some of the stuff that he and I talk about late at night.
I'm not keen on the idea. I've got to say, from a.
I think you like me. I think you like me. We both would have signed up. I think you and I would have been very similar in our disposition. We don't want to do this. We wish we weren't doing this, but we're not going to let other people do it and not do it ourselves.
I think that had there been any ranking officers with a degree of perspicacity about them, they would have observed that I couldn't be trusted with weaponry in the vicinity of other people, and they would have assigned me to some sort of job where I couldn't kill anyone by accident.
I don't think they were too picky about the spring of 1917, about your ability. Anyway, I'm digressing dramatically away from what is a very cheery story, which is that of Dennis Compton. So he plays those seasons in India. And they go to Australia obviously he's back home in 46. And straight back into it, I hasten to add 10 centuries in 1946, like he'd never been gone at first class level. For the second time, he's made over 2,400 runs in a first class season. So there's that relief, I guess, that he's back. They're playing again. The 46-47 Ashes series isn't one to write home about necessarily. Australia win 3-0, but he does get, twin test tons at Adelaide Oval. Like, this guy is straight away right back to being England's most important player. And that takes us to 1947, that magical, insane season for Middlesex with he and Bill Edrich. It's still rationing. It's still horrible objectively. The place is still bombed out, but this is still the national sport. And
they're hungry. They're hungry. They're
hungry in many ways.
They're making all those runs because they've got a gnawing in their belly.
And could they kind of bring cricket back to the people through 47? That was the question. And through Compton, he did, sort of dancing all the way, literally, by night, and then in the middle as well, his sweeps and his dancing were his defining shots. And he was a party animal, but he's of his time, right? Everyone was a party animal in 1947. If you got out the other end of that thing, you probably were going to take the piss a bit. And there's that line about him, throwing off his dinner jacket, having been out all night and put his pads on and go out to bat. It's probably, not literally true, but there's a bit of that Stoddy about him, right? We spoke about Stoddart a number of times. And with Compton, he was the guy that, guys wanted to be him, girls wanted to be with him, right? He was the Brill Cream boy. And remember, he's not of money either. So he probably placed a higher value on it, thus that commercial arrangement with Brill Cream. There's this beautiful Andy Bull piece, who's a listener to the show, g'day Andy, that he wrote during the pandemic about England in 1947, which I recommend. What I'm about to go through here, a lot of it does come from Andy's writing. And he sort of tries to explain to an extent how London was thought to be a dying city that year. 46-47 was the worst winter in 50 years. There was no fuel. There was no food. It was rough as guts. And, I guess the context of Bully writing this article was that in the middle of the pandemic, London felt dead again. So that was analogous to, or comparable rather, to what was going on for different reasons in the nation's capital. It was quite a moving
Dennis
piece.
comparable.
Electricity was limited. Gas was limited. They were back to working by candlelight in many cases. Everything was rationed. And that austerity stretched to sport, which I wasn't aware of. They cancelled midweek football in 1946-47. They didn't let horse
cricket
racing.
Is a real pain in the ass. You've got like 500 blokes with candles at the boundary line.
Yeah. Well, this is it. That's part of the reason they got rid of football midweek. They didn't let horse racing meets happen midweek either, because they needed to concentrate their activity where they could and their resources where they could. So, some said that it was worse than the war days because there was so little joy that they expected after coming out of that horrible time that there'd be joy, but there wasn't. And there was even chat that they would cancel the test matches against South Africa that summer. But Clement Attlee, the Prime Minister, as we've talked about on the pod before, he was a cricket man and he made sure that the test matches would remain in the schedule, and so that wasn't under threat. But yeah, Compton and Edrich especially are making the most of this. They are absolutely ready to go. Compton 3816, Edrich 3539. The fact that they were opening the batting together in the same team and made 70, what's that work out to be? 300 runs. I'm doing a bad job of adding those two numbers together. A lot of runs, 3,500 and 3,800 together. Crazy numbers.
73. Yeah.
Is that right? I don't know.
Sure.
Just to the cricket bits.
What's 8 and 5? It's 13 plus 6.
Thank you.
Would be 70.
Thanks for confirming that I haven't completely lost my mind. To the cricket bits, Compton made 18 centuries in one season here. 18. Fred Fanning, Laurie Nash, 18. And he got one as the season was starting in Auckland on the 28th of March at the end of the 46-47 Test tour when they were on the way back through New Zealand and played some Test cricket there. There are first-class fixtures in the English season which have started in March. Sam Robson got 100 in March a number of years ago now. He was still in the Southern Hemisphere when he got that century. Then it all begins again on the 17th of May. He actually gets 97 on the 17th of May, one of 2 90s in the season. He gets his first 100 on the 21st of May, 7 weeks into the season, I guess how we would see it these days, 7 weeks after I know the championship didn't start at the start of April then, but how we see a season now is the start of April. Got centuries on the 21st, the 24th, and the 31st of May, the 7th and the 21st of June, the 5th, the 12th, the 19th, and 23rd of July, the 2nd, the 6th, the 9th, the 13th, the 16th, the 23rd, and 30th of August. 7 first-class hundreds in a calendar month, in 28 days, in 4 weeks, and then a couple in September to finish it off on the 3rd and 13th of that month, finishing with 246 in a Middlesex versus the rest game after they'd won the championship, and that was with a cooked knee as well. So 18 centuries in 115 days between the 21st of May and the 13th of September, including 4 in Test matches in that summer against South Africa. 11 of them were for Middlesex, and I think a few were for the MCC.
Right.
Another dozen 50-plus innings just to round it off. So 30 50-plus innings. He averaged 90.85 in an even 50 hits. So 30 of his 50 innings, he's reached 50, which is just offensive by any historical marker. The best way to describe his 1947, it's Bradman-esque. The only person you can compare this to, this type of run, is Don Bradman. And that's the highest compliment you can really pay a batter. 11, as I mentioned before, were in the county championship as Middlesex stormed famously to the title. Oh, and just a good measure, he bowled left-arm wrist spin as a party trick. He used to describe it as a party trick. He took 72 wickets in the season with his fucking party trick. This guy was a freak. And 753 of those runs were made plundering the South Africans in those Test matches. Crowds were flocking to watch him. Attlee was following every score. They got the ticker tape installed at the front of Attlee's office, partly so he could track how Compton was going. This story was a national obsession. And there's some really nice Carter's quotes here, which feature in an obituary. And I think it was in the Bully piece as well. Never have I been so deeply touched on a cricket ground as I was in this heavenly summer, when I went to Lord's to see a pale-faced crowd existing on rations, the rocket bomb still in the ears of most folks, to see this worn, dowdy crowd watching Compton. The strain of long years of anxiety and affliction passed from all hearts and shoulders at the sight of Compton in full sail, sending the ball here, there, and everywhere, each stroke a flick of delight, a propulsion of happy, sane, healthy life. There were no rations in an innings by Compton. So, that I think that beautifully sums up what London was, what England was, and what Compton did to change so much of the thinking in that glorious summer. And from there, it was foretold. 17 Test hundreds for England, an average of 50, just over actually, 50.06. The quickest triple century in first-class history by minutes, which remains 181 minutes for MCC against Northeast Transvaal. Jeff, where was it? I thought you'd appreciate this.
Where was it?
Where was it? The Benoni Hazelhurst, where Compton made the quickest triple ever on an MCC trip. Well, on an England trip to
Big
play
Ted
for MCC.
And Jemima.
Yeah.
We're in the stands.
And so much more. I mean, with Compton, it's the bad knees, it's the crazy running between wickets, it's the charm, it's the chaos of his life. It's Lords to the end. He served as president for the 6 years before he died in 1997. He's like, oh, well, why not? He was their first president. He goes, oh, I'll come back and do that job as well.
Sure. Done all the others.
Yeah, Ashes winner twice, icon forever, a defining symbol of hope, the man of 3816 in 1947, Dennis Compton for Flem.
And it should be, that should be a story that gets told to Ashes cricketers. If you're in the series with a Compton Miller medal, I mean, how many, if you had to straw poll it, how many players out of the 22 that are going to show up in Perth would have much of an idea who Dennis Compton is, let alone what he did? Besides, right. Played for England at some point.
When Dr. Peter Bruckner was running the Aussie stuff, the medical stuff, he used to do that quiz, didn't he? He would do a history lesson on every city they went to. I mean, I think there's an argument for some version of that with greats of Ashes cricket, just having some context. And it's not hagiography either. If we were telling the broader story of Dennis Compton, we might talk about South Africa and how his views were kind of all over the place on that, and how he found himself on the wrong side of history in other parts of his life. But, you're allowed to lead a complex life, especially if you've had such an eventful time in your 20s where you've served at war and you've been at risk of dying, and you've come back and been able to provide so much joy for so many people. It isn't, people shouldn't be viewed in black and white terms for the most part. For the most part, there are endless shades of grey, but the joy and the light of Compton and Edrich and all the rest, the top four all made 2,000 runs that year for Middlesex. Crazy season. Is really considerable and noteworthy in the, as I said, the post-war restoration of the game and the way people felt in the city.
Yeah, and if you've got players who want to play the Ashes because they know that it has legacy, because it's part of this historical context, that's part of the draw, part of the reason why it means more. That should be part of the education of becoming a national player, I would have thought.
And 2027, the sesquicentenary test will hopefully do a bit of that heavy lifting, It kind of, again, I don't want to bang on about this all the time, but it kind of reminds me of that whole pink ball thing with that test match. Like, it's just like, it doesn't accept and appreciate and respect the history. And, I know Todd Greenberg doesn't believe in this. I just could tell from his answer to me, he thinks this is bullshit, the pink ball thing for this test match. You can just tell he knows this is bullshit, that this was a legacy. This was a legacy item, a decision made before he started there. He knows he's a cricket person. He knows this is ridiculous playing as a day-night test match. Not everything needs to be American, but everything needs to be played at night. If your only reference in life is America, what are you?
Yeah.
Our game is far bigger than that, far better than that. Right, that's my answer. Jeff, you're next. Do you have time to get your answer in, or are we going to break?
I think we go to a break early so we can relax and we can do our last two. And I will mention on the way to that break that if you haven't been listening to the daily shows, you may not know that we've been working with probably the best fit that we've ever had, sponsor-wise, where we're covering the Women's World Cup. Lacuna Sports is a company that makes cricket kit specifically for women and for girls, because there are so many reasons why men's and boys' kit, what was just considered to be default kit, doesn't work for girls, doesn't work for women, doesn't fit right, it's uncomfortable. There are a whole range of problems that we've been talking through on that show, and I just want to wave to them and say that they're doing good work.
Amazing response. lacunasports.co.uk. It's in all of our show notes. I know they're not technically on this show per se, but it's in all our notes. And if you're running a club and you want to improve participation with girls and women, which is the best low-hanging fruit in cricket, by the way. Like, this is the thing, right? I've seen it. I'm seeing
it now. Ground for growth.
I'm seeing it with my kids.
Every club that's looking to grow numbers, like, that's where it's possible.
Every club that talks about finding it tough to make ends meet, start a girls division, start a women's division, invest in it, and you will find a new revenue stream. Funny that, over time. But it's more important than that, of course. It's about growing the game, and you can do that with lacunasports.co.uk. Jeff, just before we go to the break, actually, given we've got a bit of space before we theoretically need to go to it, great response to the shout out on the other day about the Lord's Tabs Marathon, May 26. A couple of people have already signed up. We had Jonty get in touch with me today saying he wants to run the the Edinburgh Marathon, having done the London Marathon. I love this stuff. He ran the London Marathon for the Tabs last year, and he's like, you know what, this is Jonty Cook. I want to do Edinburgh with you guys. He's straight into the thick of things, talking about fundraising. Okay. And after that night I spent at the Oval the other night, which was breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking, the work that's done in relation to the Super Ones. Just blown away by the remarkable work this charity does. This is definitely something that you can feel, it's a personal challenge, and everyone has their own limit on how far they can run and what they can do. But the very practice of contributing to a charity like this, it's good for the soul, great for the Tabs, and why wouldn't you want to do it? So get in touch with me, adam@finalwarecricket.com. Find me anywhere. I'm on the internet fairly widely. You can get to me. You can get to me easily, get to my family. No one's gonna stop you bribing me or blackmailing me or whatever. Now let's go to the break.
Okay. All right. We'll be back. It's the final word. It's story time number 243. And this number comes in from another friend of the show, the Reverend Dylan Nichols, who has sent through, we've had some generous pledges on the show today. Thanks, everybody. $44 in AUD. 44 As Corey Enright said on the podium in 2007, Corey, how many years has it been since Geelong won a flag? 44. What's the number on your back? 44. There you go.
I'm always grateful that we had. Those are great days, aren't they? But those DVDs that you get with multiple commentaries and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you had the 07 one, Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
And where you can recite every line. Remains the case. I'm sure as you get deeper into these, maybe less so, but the first one's special, and as it was for you in 07. Thank you, Dylan Nichols. Here's the clue. A number that is close to my kin and I. It relates to a controversy caused by those not shy. This time it happened was close to home. Poor old Mr. Huddlestone. Huddleston, I think it was meant to be, but we'll take it. It's close. It's close. It's almost like Luke Bruce wrote a poem, sticking with footy for a sec, when he said goodbye to Hawthorn the other day, having finished his long and illustrious and outstanding career, where he rhymed MCG with Waverley. reminded me of the Beck Hewitt, Leighton Hewitt poem when they got married.
Yes.
That line about the 4 seasons or whatever it was, and you start answering it, and I'll find some rhyming couplets.
That poem is spectacular. Rebecca Shaw, I think, gave a wonderful rendition of it at a spoken word event. In fact, I've just found it. I mean, is it too much of a divergence? Why don't we do this line by line? I've got it in front of me as well. We can do this. This is our podcast. Okay. I really don't know where to start,
but I definitely know you've captured my heart.
It started that night you called me up
to see if I'd play in the Starlight Cup.
Way back then, little did we know
that our love for one another could grow and grow.
A text message or two is what kept us in touch.
And I want you to know that I love you so much.
It wasn't till late in 2004 that I received another phone call. Wait.
When we decided to meet, we went up the street for something to eat.
Oh, she's really getting boisterous with the rhyme scheme now. From that day on, I've been by your side.
And look at me now. I'm here as your bride.
I used to wish upon a star that I'd meet the perfect husband, and here you are. Anyone who's ever met you can count themselves lucky.
I'm so lucky I found the one.
Being with you, I have nothing but fun.
You're my best friend and my dream come true.
And I'm so glad to be sharing all this with you.
This is only the start of our dream together.
But I promise to love you until forever.
I can't wait to start my life with you.
Just being together, our dreams will come true.
I have no doubt I'm glad to be your wife.
And being with me is now a part of your life. This is a lot longer than I remembered.
I thought this was, and being with me, you'll have a bloody good life. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I admire you for so many reasons.
I mean, look at what happened at the 4 Seasons.
That's the line, isn't it? We're about to experience the miracle of life.
But always remember, I'm so proud to be your wife.
Having a family with you makes me so glad.
I know I'll never get sad.
Thanks for choosing me.
By sticking together, we'll make a great family.
Engaged and then married. Now, one on the way.
I'll take such good care of you every day.
It's safe to say I'll love you more and more.
And marrying you today, I couldn't be more sure.
Rebecca Hewitt, I'm your wife.
I promise you one thing, stick with me and you'll have a bloody good life. Nailed it, Beck.
What's you up to now? What are you up to now?
I don't know what, Bex. Have a Michael Google.
Oh, I will.
And see what's going on.
Kim Kleister's up to as well. I'll find that out too.
So poor old Mr. Huddlestone or Mr. Huddleston. This is going almost Coldplay style, almost back to the start. The first Victorian first class match was 1851. Who was it against? Pop quiz. Who was it against? Victoria's first game.
First class game. What year was it?
1851.
Oh gosh, I assume it would have been against New South Wales, but
you would
probably
think
not.
so, but it wasn't.
Tasmania?
Yeah. Why was it against Tasmania? I don't know. This match that we're talking about,
Island.
They played it on King Island. They got a big wheel of cheese and they rolled it down the pitch. Before the wreck of the Kataraki on King Island? It may well have been. It may even have been. I don't know. My father wrote a book about that. If you've ever wanted to read a book about the shipwreck of the Kataraki, you can, I don't know.
Andrew Lemon's your man.
Yeah. He can tell you all about it, as he has done me a number of times. Now, The 12th first-class match Victoria ever played was in 1862. It was against New South Wales. It was the 7th match against New South Wales. You know, proper first-class cricket, 11 versus 11 and so on. This is the only first-class match that Victoria played that year on the 9th of January at the MCG. But if you're a keen listener to the show, you might remember that 1862 is the year that the Wattle Flat match was played, which we talked about only a couple of weeks ago and which forms a chapter in the Final Word Storytime book that is coming out in November. 1862 is that year. It's that tour, that England commercial touring team. So you might remember from the Wattle Flat story that in the 22 players from Wattle Flat, there were 2 who had played for Victoria. Ben Butterworth played 3 times for Victoria, and Charles Makinson played twice for Victoria. Ben Butterworth is the skipper of the Wattle Flat team. Charles Makinson top scores in the Wattle Flat team. But that game hasn't happened yet. That game's coming up in March 1862, the great triumph when they beat the English tourists. But this game is in January of 1862, and it's between Victoria and New South Wales during the tour. So reading some newspaper reports of this from the time, it is amusing to me, Adam, that the more things change, the more they stay the same. All the stuff they're talking about, they start out by complaining about the attendance. Not enough people have shown up to the Victoria-New South Wales game at the MCG. The line says, the sultry weather with which the morn was ushered in may have had some effect in keeping the public away, but in our opinion, the thin attendance was attributable to a reaction among the admirers of outdoor sports, because they'd only a few days before they'd had the England tourists playing an 18 from Victoria. And so that was the thesis of the paper, was that having seen England play, well, watching Victoria, New South Wales was no good. It was,
had their fill.
It was, they say, viewed as altogether a second-rate affair. So they're getting punchy. Another interesting bit that the New South Wales, says the paper, like the English 11, were distinguished by all white, while the Victorians adopted a shirt with a mauve crossbar on a white ground with the usual white flannel Inexpressibles. What is an Inexpressible? Is that underwear or is that?
I don't know. It must be.
Like
white flannel Inexpressibles. Don't know.
But a mauve crossbar. Can we get the Vicks back in a mauve crossbar?
Yeah. Oh, did you see the now what was it? It was the 1994-95 retro Victorian tracksuits been put out by the Vicks as merch. It's only missing the light ice badge. It's only, and I've immediately sent a message to a friend of mine who works in that part of the economy in the beer industry, saying, if you can, link us up with Light Ice as a brand to sponsor the podcast this Ashes. Is there anybody better? Is there any podcast better suited than to promote Light Ice when it's so inextricably linked to Victorian cricket circa 1994 to 1997? This is all of our threads coming together. And the fact that the Victorians are releasing merch right now from that era, someone speak to someone. If you know someone that works at Asahi and marketing, Asahi Group runs all that these days, I know, runs CUB, and I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Talk to them and get them to email me, adam@finalwordcricket.com. Let's get Light Ice on the show this year. Chocolate milk and Light Ice.
Yep.
Flavoured milk, more generally.
I have no strong feelings about Victoria cricket-wise, really, but I would probably wear a retro 1994 kit. I'd probably do it. Right. But I would definitely wear the white one with the mauve crossbar because, why not? Why not go back to, if you're going retro, release the 1862 kit, Victoria. Stop being cowards.
Crossbar.
So other things that never
trousers
changed.
Trousers were known as Inexpressibles.
Okay.
Tight, exotic men's trousers that showed sexual organs. Here we fucking go. Hang on a sec. Bear with me a moment.
What they were wearing.
Bear with me a moment. I'm going to do a little word search here. Just stand by, caller. Okay. They likely acquired their name because they were extremely erotic and fit so tightly they showed every nook and cranny of a men's sexual organs, posterior and muscular legs.
Are you reading the AI summary?
No, I'm reading an article written by someone called jerrywalton.com on her website called jerrywalton.com. Stories of trousers known as Inexpressibles, penned in the June of 2014. They must have been really tight footy short style trousers, flannels, that they were wearing to play cricket in.
Okay.
It goes on to say, they would have accentuated the men's sexual organs even more if extra room had not been allowed in one thigh that created a pocket where a man could position them. Hello.
So when somebody asks how you're hanging, that's redundant. They can tell because there's only one side it could be.
But they had a pocket to put your
fella in.
Put your piece in.
Yeah, but it could only have ever been one side. Everybody's hanging to the left or the right, depending how the trousers are made.
Even with the pocket, Inexpressibles left nothing to the imagination. Wearers, such as the famous George Brian Beau Brummel, don't know who he is, doesn't really matter, created the image of a naked Greek god, as Inexpressibles were usually pale in colour. At least one person noted such trousers were a natural evolution. Well, there you go.
Okay. They're wearing, they could have been, you could have been playing at the G and then off down Smith Street to Circuit and having yourself
dressing to the left, dressing to the right. Depends which way you put the pocket, I guess.
That's what I'm saying. The manufacturer decides. like you've got no agency in the situation. The pocket is the pocket. Right.
Things you learn on Storytime. Inexpressible.
Exactly.
White flannel. Okay. Let's get someone. Get the Victorians wearing white flannel Inexpressibles this year. In addition to the mauve crossbar. Let's get
maybe the Max 60 Victorian team in Guyana can wear the mauve crossbar and
maybe I think you're going to say get Maxi into them. I can't rule it out. We'll see if he fancies doing some.
We can make it. We'll be final word merch. 1862 Victorian retro. Right. Let me finish this this answer. Okay. So things that don't change. This was my theme as I was reading through this report from one of the papers at the time. In the next over, they say Kinloch was given the credit of getting Moore's wicket, much to the latter's disgust, judging from his disinclination to leave. So it's 1862, but you've still got players cracking the shits and refusing to leave the middle. So a few wickets fall, Adam. It's 3 for 41 when John Huddleston comes to the middle. Hard to find much about him. Born in Nottingham, moved to Australia. He puts on 21 with the skipper, George Marshall, who's then bowled. And then he puts on 62 more with a guy called Richard Wardle. And this is a lot in these days. These are big runs. They're 120 plus now. They go to lunch. My favourite bit from the report here, quote, Huddleston had now passed Marshall in scoring and bade fair to make the top score when the bell sounded a parley for luncheon. This very necessary part of the day's performance, though differing from previous similar meetings by an agreed absence of health drinking and the concomitant speech-making, was nevertheless characterised by a hearty and hospitable welcome by the Victorians to their Sydney rivals. So every previous match, they've gone off for lunch and then had like 2 hours of speeches while everyone gets shit-faced. is what I'm learning from this.
Yeah, I think we learnt when looking at the first Test match, the playing hours were all over the place as well, weren't they? Weren't there like 90-minute lunches and different?
Well, they wouldn't start until 1 p.m. or something.
Well, and some days were the full day, other days were a couple of hours because they, in all probability, were doing precisely this: health drinking. And speech making.
To your health.
Quite,
yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So he's probably a bit pissed when he comes back out because they've had this hearty and hospitable welcome. He moves his score on to 44, and then at the non-striker's end, this same bowler, John Kinloch, is the bowler. The quote says, when, however, the score had been increased to 124, Jay Huddleston left his wicket, and before he could return, there was a disturbance in his timber yard, Kinloch having dislodged his bails. So he's been man-catted.
In his timber yard.
A disturbance in his timber yard. Sounds euphemistic. I'd love to, but I have a disturbance in my timber yard.
I've had to get a test. I've got to
Yes. My Inexpressibles are too tight. Your invitation is very kind. Unfortunately, there's a disturbance in my timber yard. So he's been run out at the non-striker's end. He's the first recorded man-cad victim in Australia. There have been some in English first-class cricket, but this is the first one in Australia. And it's not controversial at the time. It only gets that mention in the report. Nobody has histrionics about it. Nobody carries on about it. They just say it happened. He left his crease and he got run out, as it should be. So this is the first of what I realised is that outside Test matches, there are only 3 first-class run-outs at the non-striker's end in Australia, Adam. There are heaps in England, quite a few in India, but there's this odd thing where there are 4 in Test matches. 3 of the 4 in Test matches happened in Australia. Bill Brown in Sydney, Ian Redpath in Adelaide, Sikander Bakht in Perth. Vinu Mankad, Charlie Griffith, Alan Hurst, the bowlers who affect them. But aside from those, only 3 in first-class cricket in Australia. Huddleston's the first.
So Brown would have been another when he was Mankaded in the Australian 11 game,
yes.
Right?
So there's one a few years after Huddleston called Stoddart Campbell, who gets Mankaded by Nat Thompson in 1866. And then that's it until Mankad does Bill Brown in the tour match in 1947. So for 80 years, it doesn't happen. And then Bill Brown is the last non-test first-class one in Australia. Vinu Mankad also took 8 wickets in that innings when he ran out Bill Brown. So it's not like he couldn't. Oh, you're just doing it because you can't take wickets. No.
Denied himself a 9 for.
9 for could have been.
This was team first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, and the only wicket he didn't take was the number 10. I think the second last to fall. So he would have been on track for all of them anyway. This game, okay, from 5 for 124, the Vicks carry on. Charles Makinson and some others make runs. Here's the other great quote. The bowling was now fairly beaten, scarcely one ball in half a dozen overs passing the bat. Indeed, the officers of wicketkeeper and long stop were perfect sinecures, though the remainder of the field were actively engaged.
Love the match reporting here.
Oh, I love it. So they've got a long stop behind the keeper and they've got the keeper, but they don't have any work to do. Anyway, New South Wales make 76. Then they're forced to follow on. They make 109, which means they leave only 5 runs to win in this game. Oh, there's this other bit with, so Nat Thompson, who I mentioned, who is the second bowler to effect a run out at the non-strikers end in 1866. He's also playing in this game in 1862, but he's the wicketkeeper in 1862 for New South Wales. But he bowls a little bit. He takes 23 first-class wickets in a career where he bowls a couple of hundred overs, but most of the time he's a wicketkeeper. But when he bowls, he also mancads somebody. So, and then he opens the batting in this game. So Nat Thompson for New South Wales gets around. Pat Rogers has probably written a book about him. Odds are high. New South Wales in this game, they set only 5 to win. Ben Butterworth, who was the long stop for Victoria and who's the captain of the Wattle Flat team, he batted 11 in the first innings. He made 2 not out. He doesn't bowl. He takes 1 catch. He's the long stop, the specialist boundary fielder behind the wicketkeeper. And then he gets thrown up the order to open with 5 to win and makes a couple of runs not out. So going from number 11 to opening in the same match wouldn't have happened to a lot of players. Chuck Fleetwood Smith in 1937 is one who springs to mind. And then our one of our favourites, Father Marriott, who's also got a chapter in the book, he did it the other way around in his last first-class match. He opened in the first innings and batted 11 in the second. But I'd like to see the list of players who batted 11 and opened in the same first-class match. There'd be a few novelty ones where they, last game of a career kind of thing, go and have a pop. But I doubt there'd be a lot. Put that on the Andrew Sampson wish list. Draw me up a list of everybody who's batted 11 and 1 or 2 in the same first-class match. But Huddleston was the first non-strikers run out in Australia, and he must have a family relation to the Reverend who set this clue, and I forgot to find out what the number meant. It was 44, but I got too interested in my story. 44 is what he made, I think, before he got run out.
Quite interesting. I just jumped on Ben Butterworth's Wikipedia page, just, as you do. And his role is identified on the page as fieldsman. And the reason is, it explains here, he was the best long stop in England. So this was in the era before wicketkeeping improved, obviously. So you could be, techniques changed wicketkeeping, didn't it? Over time. But yeah, where long stop was quite important. But imagine now being a specialist long stop. It's like, being a specialist short leg or a specialist slipper. Anyway, there you go.
It's what happens in the kind of games we play when, like, if I'm at fine leg and we kind of want to split the difference and have like a deep third in the fine leg and just have someone running. But it is where you put your worst fielder.
It can be, not always, but it can be. Right.
One more.
I've got one more answer here.
Mm-hmm. Tom Stewart.
Great mate of the show.
Not that Tom Stewart, another Tom Stewart. £11.97 is the number, Adam. Tom says, commemorating a team man who was the first of a trio of tragedies that marked my time following my county team.
Yeah, I mentioned at the top of the show, and g'day Tom, who's been a great pal of us for a long time now, played final word cricket, been a supporter of what we've done in Edinburgh campaigns and all the rest. A great final worder here in London, and his team is Surrey. And yeah, I said earlier in the program today that there'd be some connections to what I discussed last week. Well, sadly, this is another, because the tragedies at Surrey, one of which was that of Ben Holyoake, and sad to say it's very similar, this story, and those three awful tragedies that the trio that Tom's referring to there. There was Ben Holyoake passing away in 2002, Tom Maynard a decade later, which was such a horrible time. I was over here in the UK in 2012, and that the game grieved that Tom Maynard death, and still does, quite a lot. Such a proud cricketing family, and the way that all played out. And I suppose a player who so much was expected of in Tom Maynard in the future. And then I suppose you could say, well, not suppose, you could very much say there's been that fourth tragedy more recently with Graham Thorpe's passing last year. And, like Vish wrote beautifully in 2016 about when they got back to Division 1, how the grief from that era around the Tom Maynard, and I think he might have even spoke about Ben Holyoake, and just like the grief of the club and what they'd been through, and the number of times they'd had to bury their own. Well, the first in that sequence is who Tom Stewart's referring to today. The first death was on New Year's Day, 1997, thus 1197, and that was Graham Hussey, who to this day is held in such high regard at the Oval. Just last week, I was at the Surrey Team Awards, and the Graham Hussey Team Man is one of the most prestigious, if not the most prestigious award on the night. That's the one that Matt Fisher won and gave that funny speech that I told you about last week on the show. It was awarded to him by Cam Steele, who won it 3 times before him. And Cam Steele's a bloke of real substance as well. I can recommend reading his Substack last week on service stations in cricket, which is a weird topic, but an excellent one. Proper bit of cricket writing there by Cam Steele. But, that's the type of person who wins the Graham Hussey Team Man Award, people of substance, and Matt Fisher's another one of these. And his story...
it was about the democracy of the petrol station stop, and how no matter how high-flying the player is, you'll still see them in line at a Tesco Express or something, getting a Coronation chicken sandwich at 2 a.m.
All of that. Yeah, I've spoke to Cam about hopefully doing some stuff with us here on The Final Word as well. We'll see. We'll see how things transpire over the winter. Anyway, back to the story I want to tell, which is that of Graham Hussey. He was born in May 1971. He went to Beth's Grammar in Bexley, out Kent Way, so southeast London. Upbringing, Bexley's where great mate of the show and one of our Nerd Pledge sleuths, Glenn Kenny Finkeld, played cricket here when he was an overseas pro many years ago. In the case of Graham Hussey, he was in the Kent Twos by 1990 as a teenager, keeping in that team, and made his first class debut in 1991 as a 20-year-old. Made 5 appearances for Kent in the first team across 1991 and 1992. Before he left for Surrey for more opportunities in 1993. And you might wonder, why would a wicketkeeper be moving to Surrey when Alex Stewart's in his pomp? Well, this was kind of the strategic move in a way, because Stewie was ensconced within the England squads, and that meant that there was quite a lot of Surrey cricket where they had room for, they needed another keeper, right? So that's how it worked, and how he was able to enjoy such a great time of it with Surrey. He won his county cap at the end of the 1996 season. And most tragically, that was the last time that he played, because he went to Australia for the summer of, the English winter, but the Aussie summer of 96-97. He was playing for Western Suburbs in Sydney, the club that we were talking about on the weekly show, which made headlines for a grade game last week. He was in Brisbane on Christmas Eve. He was involved in a road accident, and he had major head injuries and passed away from those injuries a few days later on New Year's Day at age 25, which again is another one of these, just, you say it out loud and it sounds inconceivable that someone would die at such an age. But as it was with Ben Holyoake, so young, at that club as well, a few years on from this. Alex Stewart at the time spoke and said, without doubt, the most popular man on the staff, a true player's player. And as I said before, that informs that award now, the player's player. That quote, Graham Hussey, player's player, voted on by the team members. In the obituary, it said that his cap would often fall off when he was wicket keeping, but he rarely dropped anything in his sight. And his batting was of his era. He would sweep all day if he could, as wicket keepers often do. He was cheery and combative, so the kind of cricketer that people just loved being around. Adam Holyoake said you could rely on him totally. You could get the best wicketkeeper in the world, but he couldn't possibly fill the gap left by led by Graham Kersey. So you're getting a sense of the type of regard he was held in there at Surrey in his 5 seasons at the club. And indeed, Adam Hollyoake referenced Kersey when they won the championship in 2002. So, of course, he referred to his brother, but also Graham Kersey as 2 players who were missing from that team who'd passed away. He played 83 professional games, 20 half centuries, 216 dismissals with the Gloves, and a loss for the club of Surrey and the game that is hard to reconcile given he was so young at age 25. And that's who Tom Stewart is referring to with his 1197, Graham Kersey.
Yeah, something in that era, right? Like a 5-year span between Kersey and Hollyoake, with those 2 deaths from the same club, and how, as we talked about last week, how much that affects, when you're young and you lose peers, that hits in a totally different way to when you're older and you've got a longer view of life, I suppose, and of what that it can and will bring at different points. If you're lucky enough to make it this far, it might sound a bit trite, but I sometimes say to people who are grizzling about having a birthday coming up, or getting this much older, I think, well, you're lucky. You're lucky to. If you're worried about turning 40, you're lucky to make it. If you're worried about turning 50, you're lucky to be there, because a lot of people would love to have had the chance and don't get the chance to do that.
Yeah, it's a privilege. Aging is a privilege, and I've was reminded of that very acutely last year when my great friend Chris passed away a year ago next week. He passed away at 41. That still seems ridiculous. I still can't believe it, really, nearly a year on. And that was said a couple of times around that time that, we've got to remember that as you get older, yes, it's an age which means that you are perhaps less physically capable than you would have been when you were younger, but it doesn't mean that it's not inherently a bad thing. It's the very opposite of that. It's inherently a good thing that we're able to reach the ages that we do, and hopefully, touch wood, continue to.
You get the opportunity to experience a different era, and if that era is one where your knee hurts or your back's annoying you, or all of those things that happen, you can't do the things you used to do, you're still getting an opportunity to have that existence, to have that period of existence.
Jeff, that ends the show on a slightly sadder note, but it's been a cheery show more generally. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, you've enjoyed the last 80 or so minutes. If you've really enjoyed it and you're not a patron, we'd love you to sign up. Patreon.com/The Final Word. It's all there in the show notes. You'll click through and you'll see what we're doing there. It's the reason why we could do this. We wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be spending our lives making the final word if it wasn't for Patreon. We've never been more grateful to our patrons. Every time I get a message from someone in our community, got an unbelievably beautiful message from one of our patrons yesterday, thanking us for finding her partner, which sounds like a wild statement, but it's true. Like, she met her partner because of the final word. And you're like, fuck, it's not us. We haven't set them up or anything, but it's a community thing, right?
We could build an app.
You could build an app,
but it might be a relatively limited pool.
No, it might be, but still, I know that sounds very wholesome, but it's more than that as well. It's some of the most funny, interesting characters that I've ever had anything to do with. People I play a lot of cricket with, and spend a lot of time with, going to the football and going to gigs and whatever else. It's that type of community as well, and of course it is the foundation under which everything else we do on The Final Word sits. So find us on Patreon, join up there, join the Discord, join our community, and allow us to keep having the space to keep having these types of conversations like we have had today. This has been Storytime 243. I hope you have a nice weekend.
See you later.